So Nandan, Tanuj will just start off on this. It's 4 o'clock, so we will get going with this conversation. And so, just to set context, this is the final conversation of Beacon 2022, an Ideas Festival hosted by the BIT School of Management and curated by Founding Fuel. And for those of you who have just logged in, I'm Charles Assisi from Team Founding Fuel. And my colleague NS Ramnath is on stage with me. He's monitoring the DM on Founding Fuel and will take audience questions you may have for Nandan Nilekani and Tanuj Bhojwani. And like I told you, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Leena Chatterjee. She teaches organizational behavior at BITSoM, and most people know of her as one of the finest teachers in the country by students who have passed through her classes over the years. Now, on my part, any attempt to introduce Nandan and Tanuj right now will be an overkill. Their book, The Art of Bitfulness, has got people talking and it is all over the media, and we are privileged to have them with us. So, Nandan, Tanuj, thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us. Really appreciate this.
It's our pleasure, Charles. Our pleasure.
So, thanks so much once again. A little bit of the book for those of you who may have not read it yet. This book is divided into three parts. Uh, it explains what the problem we face is. The problem is part one. How can, as individuals, we model our behavior? That is the second part of the book. And why it is time for us to come together as a collective and have a dialogue so that we can rethink the internet for the longer term. That is the third part of the book. And we'll go into each of these with Nandan and Tanuj. But before I do that, I want to open with a question to each of you. So, Nandan, how did the idea of the book, this particular book, germinate for you? Because when I first heard about this book and the theme, I thought it was rather counterintuitive coming from you. Because, like I said right at the outset, you're a hardcore techie. So, how did you think this up?
Yeah. No, I think some people, I mean, superficially, it seems as to why am I writing this book? But the fact of the matter is that I am a great believer in technology and its transformation potential, whether it's transformation of companies or societies. And my entire professional life has been dedicated to that. But what I began to observe, and I saw this even more in the pandemic, was people were more and more dependent upon their devices for everything, and were spending an inordinate amount of time doing all kinds of, not necessarily productive, but doom scrolling and this and that. And I felt that it's important that we know how to use technology in a way that's effective for ourselves and not let it rule over you. And therefore, this, and we have spent so much time talking about hygiene or pandemic, of having masks and social distancing and so on. But what about digital hygiene? How do we use the technology? And its very accessibility is its challenge, right? Because you can do anything, and therefore you don't know where to draw the line. And that's what. So I'm very much pro technology. I'm very much transformation of technology. So this book is not anti-tech, but it's pro you, so that you use technology better.
Right. It is indeed pro technology that I could clearly gather from the book. And like I said, that the title is counterintuitive, but on going through it, it is clearly pro tech, and so there are a great many pointers. We'll come to that. Tanuj, there was one question for you that I have, and this was playing top of mind for me. You are so much more younger than Nandan. Uh, and this was playing at the top of my mind. Just how did you learn to work with each other? I'm sure Nandan will have a few things to say about this as well. Just how did you learn to work with each other? Because tech is
Well,
a theme that where you can have so many conflicting ideas. Uh, can you just take us through that?
okay. I mean, I think so. So we didn't start working together on the book, right? We started working together. I think what happened was I serendipitously landed up at iSpirit 2 weeks before demonetization. And that was when sort of UPI was, I nobody knew demonetization was happening. UPI was something that was just this cool project I thought, and I started helping with that. And then demonetization happened, and then suddenly UPI became, the center of a storm, so to say. So it was a very hectic sort of period where we all, I think, they just needed all hands on deck, and I was there and started working with iSpirit and Nandan and the gang there. And I think what happened was a little while later, somebody observed that basically, Tanuj is good at making things up, I guess. And so at some point in time, we had to do a presentation, we had to give explain this concept of account aggregators, now that all of you would know it. But back in 2016, to explain this and to really like get this out there, we needed some new way of approaching it. I was the outsider, I was the fresh set of eyes. So they asked me to do it, and I think that's the first thing that Nandan and I worked on together, which is just like, how do we tell the story of the account aggregator to the people in a way that is under, like, people can get both what it is and what it means for the world. And since then we've been collaborating on various things because of iceberg and otherwise. Um, and so we built up a rapport, I think, and we already had that going when, I'm sure if you've seen our the first thread that Nandan also posted for the book, is that Nandan, do you want to tell this part of the story, maybe on how the book came about? I think better from him.
One of the things I learned in the pandemic was I started something called Walk in the Park because I was really getting stir crazy sitting at home and buckling down. And as soon as the parks opened up, I would go for a walk for an hour and I would invite someone to join on the walk so that we could both have a chat as well as get some exercise. And Tanuj also lives close by in Kormangala, so I called him over and as we were chatting and we started sharing notes, the digital stuff. And we realized that though we had very different ways of dealing with our technology, at an exact conceptual level, our approach was identical. And then we sort of shared notes and then sort of extracted the conceptual frame. And then we found that, it's physically different, but I mean, at the detail level different, but conceptually the same. So that's when we said, why don't we do a book out of this? And if people are having books to help them deal with their pandemic, deal with the climate change issues, why not something so important as the digital hygiene? And that's how this book came about.
Right,
Yeah.
you know what? I must. Sorry, Tanuj, you were saying something.
No, no, I just and sort of the age gap, honestly, is the peculiarity. It's because I think that was the emphasis of your question, right? Like, I think the peculiarity for us was exactly for us also. I think it was a little surprising that there's so much similarity despite very different contexts and very different starting point of technology, right? Like, I think Nandan has been using a smartphone after I started using a smartphone, like in time. And
Oh
in
wow,
terms of,
seriously?
yeah, I think Nandan, when did you get one?
Well, I got one in 2010 or thereabouts. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
After
I
I moved to UID. Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely had one before that. Uh, so,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
but
So
like,
so so
yeah.
would you guys have had some friction points or anything at any point?
Friction? No, no, no. The idea, see, the concept was one fundamental difference in our way of doing things is that we talk in the book about three modes, create, communicate, and curate. And uh, I do this through physical devices. So my create, where I actually sit down and do work without interruptions, whether it's writing or thinking or whatever, I do that always on my laptop, always in the same place in my office with the right lighting. And so when I sit down there, I know I'm going to work. And I do all my curation, which is reading and following subscriptions and all that. I do that on my iPad. And communication, I do on my phone, which is my phone, my calls and SMS. So I use three different devices. So for me, the context is set when I pick up that device. Whereas for people like Tanuj, they don't want to have so many devices, so they want to use one device and do thing. But then, if you're going to use one device for these different modes, you have to switch your device into that mode through software, through choosing the right profile. So those kind of differences, but fundamentally the same ideas.
Right. Right, interesting. I'm going to keep that in mind, because this was something that struck me, and I tried to get around with engaging with my daughter, and she scowled at me. She said, "What do you know about tech?" And I told her, "Let me teach you a thing or two." And as usual, both of us ended up in an argument. So that's why I was kind of coming in, you trying to figure out if there's something that I can pick up from the both of you. So anyway, so just moving on, so the coming to part one of the book, there's the problem that you have described. You place your finger on the problem, and you describe it as attention is the currency that powers the internet economy. Um, Quote unquote, that is how you describe it, that is the problem. And I'm just summarizing it, and you make the point that the internet in its current avatar is a private enterprise owned by a handful of technology companies. And you also go on to make the point that regulations alone by regulations alone, governments cannot rein these entities in. So can you help us decode this?
Yeah. So I'll start and ask Tanush to continue. Basically, see the internet when internet was originally remember was really a product of the U.S. government, defense, DARPA, designed to develop communication that could withstand in wars and so on. And that internet design was done by through committees and standards like HTTP, SMTP, and so on, W3 consortium, and so on. Sometime around 95 when Netscape came out, and Netscape itself came out of a browser which had been done by Andreessen called Mosaic. It was actually funded by the US government. But once Netscape came out and then the whole internet sort of revolution began, it was primarily driven by commercial organizations, which obviously had to figure out a way to make money on the internet. And the internet did not have a way to make money by selling. At that time, there was no transactional, there was no payment system. And therefore, the only model of making money was through advertising. And the moment you developed advertising, you needed to have a way of engaging people because the longer people spent using your product, then the more attention you got, and therefore you could show them more ads. And therefore, the entire design was to increase the focus of people on this. So, therefore, a lot of the techniques of the technology are how to get you engaged, to keep you longer, and so on. And that's what is causing also some of these issues because we tend to blame ourselves, but it's not just ourselves; it's both us and the technology. And there's no point saying that we are weak. We have to accept it is. And so that's what we were referring to, that the business model itself was from the beginning the original sin. But I think I'll ask Tanush to continue.
Yeah. uh, uh, Thank you, first of all, Charles. Very structured, and therefore it's much easier for me to answer this. Is that the three chapter titles, right, in part one are a toxic relationship, the problem with us, and the problem with it, or with IT. And I thought that was a clever pun. But these three chapters, right, are essentially trying to say that, look, if you try to stand on either side of this debate and say, look, oh, our technology is super powerful, you are ineffective, right? um, then you will sort of come up with one set of solutions and answers. You stand and you say something like, oh, Facebook slash Meta slash Google are evil and they're doing this and they're taking away all our things and whatever. You will stand on one set of problems with one set of answers. We genuinely believe both of these are insufficient for what's happening. There is one of the lines in the book in that part again is that, in an ideal world, we'll be less easily distracted and our technology would be less distracting, right? But it's not an ideal world. Our technology, unfortunately, because of the original sin, like Nandan explained, is designed to get as much of your attention as they can. And we also, at some level, want to use our devices to escape, to avoid, to get distracted. Not it's, in some way, it serves a purpose for you because when you are distracted, you're not thinking about the thing that worries you or is bothering you or is giving you anxiety. So the only way to approach this is to look at this as a relationship where both parties are contributing to a bad cycle, a bad pattern of behavior, and then you look at therefore what how do you break these patterns rather than trying to assign blame to one party or the other.
Yeah. Can I come in here?
Sure, Dr.
So,
Ping.
I was just thinking, when you were talking, it's almost somewhat similar to unconscious consumerism that, without realizing it, all this impulsive purchasing, so you have all these magazines, ads, companies, brands kind of vying for our money, so to speak. And, we also get sort of sucked in and we make purchases that maybe we don't really want or need, but we get caught in this whole thing of being impulsive, and uh, we don't look at, or we don't take a pause and think about, do I really need to do this or not? So I guess that's what you're perhaps also referring to, in terms of to look at your own patterns and to see.
But Dr. Lina, I think the additional thing here is that because attention is the currency,
Huh?
a lot of effort has gone in captivating your attention, right? I mean, if you
Yeah.
look today, the biggest movement in the world is this so-called short form video,
Hmm.
which people like TikTok have pioneered, and
Hmm.
it's all about getting your attention and keeping it. And that's even more than the classical, marketing. It's actually using technology to grab you.
Yeah. I want to build on what Nandan said. That's so true because one of the classic examples they give you is how they put chewing gum or knickknacks at the end of a checkout line when you're waiting
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're going to be fidgety, so you'll buy a chocolate. Okay. I can do this. I can control this in a retail store, in a Walmart, in a Costco, whatever. Your smartphone is allowing somebody else to do this in your every waking moment. And as some CEOs in the attention economy have said, our biggest competitor is sleep. So every waking moment, yes, but also then they're trying to push your waking moments to like do this chewing gum trick to you in your own house at all the time. So I would say that somewhere this is it's yes, principally similar, but sort of the crisis is more urgent and more pervasive because of this reason.
Yeah.
Right. So the point on the original sin that you made, that's an absolutely fascinating one. The original sin of the internet, and you've delved quite a bit on that in part three. And I'm going to take you up out take both of you. There are some questions which occur out there, which is quite fascinating. Meanwhile, if there are questions that occur to you, please do DM them on the Founding Fuel handle. Ram is monitoring it, and he will share them with Nandan and Tanuj, and we'll come to that in a few minutes. Before that, before coming to that question. On the original sin and how things got here, there are in part two of the book, you have moved on to individuals. You have spoken about how individuals can work to take control of technology and make it work for them. And there are many pointers you have to offer here. Now, I must admit here that, as I started to implement some of it that you have recommended, I must say that I felt stressed out and almost, because it felt brutal at some points, to put it in perspective, both of you appear super efficient to me. The way you journal, tag everything, your time management skills are, airtight. Just you're not on social media. If it is, there are, it's extremely precise. Inbox is zero. You seem to be reading just the right things. You're learning all the time. So, the first question I have for you here, Nandan, is, I'm just curious to understand, how did you grapple with the issue of relevance here? Because, there are multiple kinds of audiences that you're addressing uh, with this book, and there are multiple ideas, and particularly since Tanuj and you are in different stages of life. Um, and Nandan, you can afford to say no to straight away to a lot of things. You're at a stage in life where you can afford to have an assistant and can say no to pretty much anything. Tanuj, you're a young man and you can live on your terms. But if between the both of you, if you were to distill some universal principles, what would they be?
No, I think, it's not that these are things that I can do only because of where I am today. I agree that I do get some benefits out of that. But you know, I began my my first computer was a desktop and then a laptop, and right from then I've followed email hygiene, and I realized that it's important to be quick and reply quickly. It's important to have a good folder and filing system so you can retrieve stuff. So that's something I've been doing for 20 years, uh, quite some time back. And even today, I can retrieve an email, which is a relevant email from 20 years back. So I think the thing is, when you if you are in a communication intensive situation, then you will be overwhelmed by the messages and notifications that you receive. And I have this psychological issue that I feel compulsive need to reply to all of them. And soon, if there's this tsunami of things, I can't reply and I feel miserable. So that's why I chose to shut off these channels and limit myself to those channels, which is phone calls, text messages, and emails. And in within that universe, I'm trying to be as prompt as possible. So whereas if I join some Slack channel and every second some Slack message is pinging me, or if I'm on WhatsApp and I'm getting zillions of WhatsApp, then I just feel overwhelmed by that. So, and I don't think by making these choices, anybody can make these choices. I don't think it's just because of my position or something like that. Tanuj?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's the other way around, right? I think Nandan, the demands on Nandan's time are way more severe than me. Like, I feel like some days most people don't even miss me, they don't even call me, right? Like, so I feel it's the other way around. I probably have more leeway. That's to flip that around. I see him and I see the kind of work he does to do and the kind of threads he has, etc. I would say his life is harder, but the the piece that he has, or you ask for a principle. I think for both of us, if I have to put my finger on one thing, is the principle is that if you choose calm, productivity follows, right? But you have to choose calm. Calm is something you have to create, right, in your workspace, in your environment, in the way you're, like Nandan is talking about, messages coming at you, etc. Because look, essentially, that the anxiety or the overwhelm of this is not that there are, oh my god, the Economist published 500 articles today and I've only read one. That is not a sense of overwhelm, but other people are. Your social anxiety is probably, or if you have too many messages, or if you have too much incoming requests or emails for your time or something, and if you don't have a system of choosing calm, you will end up overwhelmed. And choosing calm for Nandan, he's not spoken about this, but I've heard him say this so many times that for about every 50 requests for his time, events, talks, opening ceremonies, I'm guessing, he'll say yes to one of them, which is, Nandan, is that, just correct me if I'm wrong anywhere, but somewhere, but basically saying no is a big part of it, right? For him to say no to his things, which I've now started to see, as I get busier, that if I continue with the saying yes in the way that I was saying 5 years ago or 3 years ago, I'm not going to be able to be calm. So that is like underlying principle, but to actually put it into operationalize it, we've given three in the book. I'll pick one, the other two I won't explain. We don't have that kind of time. It'll get too detailed. But the one that I think a lot of people have come back and said that they like is we use our phones as even the early name for this was portals, was so we use our phones as windows when we should be using them as mirrors, right? Our devices. Which, what does that mean is that we usually look into the phone to go seek something else or go find something else, and phone, laptop, whatever. Whereas it's a much more powerful tool for reflection, for you to, instead of, like, picking up on that anxiety and then saying, like, going and checking the news, or going and checking how your stocks are doing, or like writing an email because, like, where is that file that I asked for. Instead of that, what if you were to use your phone to write, to think, to figure out what's really happening, why are you feeling this way, and sort of just reflect on what's happening, which allows you to be present, which allows you to be calm, right? So yeah, and then there are two others in the book which are essentially about don't swim upstream, which essentially is about how to design work and your environment such that you're not trying to use your willpower, or swim against the grain to get something done. And the third one is called define yourselves. These three principles actually correspond to managing your time, attention, and privacy each. more in the book. I'll stop here so that we can move to the next question.
Uh, just before going to Ram out here, one question for you, Nandan. With the benefit of hindsight, did you say no as frequently in the early stages of your career? Say, for instance, when you were at Infi, when you were starting up Infi, were you as stubborn with saying no as you can say no now?
Well, obviously, when I mean, no, I don't think so. Partly because I didn't have that much self confidence or whatever to be able to say no, and also because I didn't want to offend people and so on. But I realized that only you can manage your time. Nobody else can manage your time for you, and only you can decide the value of your time, related merits of that. So, but obviously now the number of requests also are order of magnitude more, and therefore the ratio of acceptance to requests is very low, partly because the volume of requests is high. But I think it's very important because time is the only commodity for me which is scarce. Therefore, I have to do everything to optimize it. And for someone for my time, there is no cost to them to ask for that time, but I have a cost of that time, so I have to think about it pretty carefully.
Right. Got it. Hear you. Ram, are there
Sure.
questions coming in for Nandan and
Yeah, there are
Tanuj?
quite a few. I'll start with this. This one is from Kanchan Vivedi, who wants to know if meditation or yoga help with using tech mindfully. What are some of the techniques that one can use?
Well, certainly, I'm sure. I mean, the title of the book itself is a play on mindfulness. It's mindfulness for the digital world, and bitfulness is that. So, I think anything that allows you to center yourself, that allows you to be mindful, that allows you to be less stressed out about what's happening, I think will help. Uh, our view is that digital, in particular, is even more pernicious because of its easy availability. That's the point. That it's there. For example, in the physical world, if I go to a bar, I know that I'm going to socialize, have a drink, meet my friends. If I go to a library, I know I'm going to sit down and work and be very quiet. If I go to the park, I know I'm going to walk and get some exercise and fresh air. So the physical world, the fact that we're in different contexts, allows us to switch our the way we think. The digital world, everything is on the same device. Your social life, your work life, your relationships, everything on the same device, and therefore its very accessibility itself is the challenge. So I think what we're trying to say is, look, just use a few simple techniques and carve out different sort of profiles of yourself and switch into that profile, and you'll probably be able to be more calm. Hello.
Yes. Ram,
Hey,
would you want me to carry on?
Do
Anything else you would like to shoot?
Just one more question from Daya Sindhu. He has a question for Nandan. He asks, did quizzing help you efficiently to classify and organize information that you could carry over to in a work uh, context?
What helped me?
You were majorly into quiz when you were in college and school.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
that help you to organize your?
No,
Help you?
well, I don't know. I mean, the quizzing was yeah, it was a hobby of mine in the old days. Uh, yeah, I mean, when you quiz, especially when you quiz at sort of take part in championships and all that, you need to be extremely organized. You need to have a mental retrieval system. You need the ability to have a way of doing what I would call as intelligent guessing and so on. So I guess some of that stuff may have come in handy in these times.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. So, let's just shift gears a bit and move to the third part of the book. where you go on to make the point, the both of you make on the point that the responsibility lies not just with individuals but with businesses as well. And this is the point that you were making about the original sin. There's a responsibility on businesses as well to behave more mindfully. But they don't. And this has to do with how the internet has evolved and whom it rewards currently, and that it is time we have a deeper discussion around this, and that this responsibility lies on all of us, the collective, as you call it. So, Nandan, I want to begin by just probing you a little bit on this one. The business model of scale that the internet is built on. I got the sense that when reading the book that you sound deeply skeptical about this. Both of you sound deeply skeptical about it, and go on to make the point that what is happening to cab drivers and taxi drivers and delivery drivers on platforms such as an Uber or Ola or a Zomato and Swiggy will eventually happen to all other professionals across the board unless things fundamentally change. Now, can you take us through your thinking here?
Well, it's not about scale so much as the winner take all nature of the thing, right? What happened was that you, uh, and it goes back to the attention stuff and all that. You needed to be dominant to get all the attention, and therefore scale was important from that reason. So more, it's what happens when you have a winner take all model is that then the balance of power shifts, and people either as consumers or as suppliers can get affected. So that was the point we're making, and the point is that the work that we have done in India in digital public goods, building platforms like Aadhaar, UPI, and uh, the account aggregator, the ONDC, which is coming up. All these are going to essentially create much more competitive, innovative markets. So where people get the benefit of technology, but it's not just captured by a few. I think that so in that sense, the work that we do or have done is walking the talk of what we think is required.
Right. Tanuj, would you want to build on that? Oh, I think Tanuj just got disconnected for a moment. Yeah, yeah.
Any questions, right?
I didn't realize you had
No,
dropped
no,
off.
no. I was
I
listening though. I was back as a listener.
Oh, okay. No, I was just asking, would you want to, is there anything that you would want to build on that Nandan was just speaking
I mean,
about here?
yeah, I think an interesting question to ask is like, what is enough, right? When is enough? I think even today we see this, see the idea. It's never really, there's no end point to this, right? That's why we call it the slippery slope of scale, which is that today you're the company that controls all social media interaction, or at least have a say on what the social media interaction in the world look like. And then that's not enough, so you want a metaverse, right? So I think I think the idea is simply that even that, if you say, and like if I were to take this and then say that okay, therefore an individual like Mark Zuckerberg is problematic. No, that's also incorrect. I would say that the incentive structure, the stuff that we built around it, even the hype. I mean, this is very personal view. I've never discussed this with Nandan. I don't know what he thinks, but I look at Shark Tank, and while I'm very happy in seeing people and ideas being recognized, smaller ideas that usually, and people from not from places like my college or Bangalore or Bombay or Delhi getting a chance to shine. But I'm also worried that it sends the wrong message, right? It sends the message that what is important are those valuation numbers, are being able to raise a phenomenal amount of money, and more is better, right? Like that more is better argument keeps going, which is where which is from where all these decisions then eventually stem, right? Like why is short form video, for example, 15-second, so popular right now? Because it's just short enough that you're in a state of like a dissociative state, right? Where you're just basically just scrolling through and doom scrolling those videos, because before you even realize where you're at, and your brain can think and have a thought, the next thing comes on. And then the novelty of that drags you through another 15-30 seconds. So I don't think this stops unless we ask a question. We ask the question that we've asked in the book, which is how do we create infrastructure that is not built on, or the goals of which are not separate from the user's individual goals. The collective goals of that company and their success is not very different from what we would want to be successful. And this is possible, one, through regulation, where we have a view on how much of it will suffice. But the other is through sort of, um, sort of this counter technology, right? Technology built with for the public good, etc. Right? And how do you do that? So that's
Right.
part three of the book. I think I'll let you ask that question instead of going on a monologue.
Sure. Yeah, there are some thoughts on that as well. There are some interesting thoughts as well. Sorry, Ram, is there a question that has come in? I believe there's something that you had
Sure.
to shoot. Yeah.
There is one from Rahul Nathan, and he wants to know if we end up being so regimented about our digital life, how do we make sure that we enable serendipity in our digital life? One of the blessings of having all this digital information is the connections we can make between them. So, is there a downside to limiting
Can, can
yourself?
I uh,
So, what happens
can I
if,
take that one? No? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I mean, Ramnath knows this, for example, because in all of 2020, I kept bugging him with things about note-taking software and knowledge graphs and weird niche topics like this. I'm a big who asked this question? Ramnath? Sorry, Rahul something. It was.
Rahul?
Oh,
Rahul
it's our
Madan, yeah.
Rahul Mathan. Okay, so Rahul is he's the other person I bugged with. This so funny. No, I think Rahul is. I'm a big believer of this, right? I use the internet, or I've learned everything I've learned via the internet. So I don't think and maybe this is where our writing has not done a great job. But the idea of those three modes: create, communicate, curate, is essentially to align your intention and your attention. So if you wanted to be in a serious mode in writing, then that's what you do. Now, whether you put an hour to it, half an hour to it, put 8 hours of just doing that, that's really not something we prescribe anywhere in the book, or we even pretend to know better than anybody else, or believe that there is a prescriptive number like 15 minutes or 30 minutes of social media is good for you. More than that is bad. I don't think you'll find a mention of that anywhere in the book. Hopefully, it's not slipped in also because we genuinely don't believe that. Professions like yours, Ramnath, Charles, for example, I'm sure you have to spend more time on social media than I or Nandan have to, right? So why be prescriptive there? The only thing we want to talk about is remedial in the sense of how do you align your attention with what you're intending to do? Because most of us are not wasting our time by doing nothing. Most of us are busy, are doing something, feel very hectic also. But at the end of the day, when you look back, you feel like, but I didn't get any big thing done, right? I didn't move the needle on what was important to me.
Yeah, let me just add that I know I'm a big believer in serendipity, and but I believe that that will actually come. For example, when we talk about the curate mode, where we spend time browsing or we spend time reading or and so on, that actually is the time when you will find something which is new and interesting. And frankly, I think with algorithmic recommendations, where is there serendipity there? Because essentially the algorithms are deciding what next you see. So I don't think that is serendipity. So I think that we need to keep that in mind when we talk about serendipity in an algorithmic world. I mean, if the world was linear and I was surfing and hopping around, yes, but I'm not sure that's happening.
Right. So talking about serendipity, and I'm just going back to the point on scaling up. You also acknowledge when you go on in part three to talk about that. Scale is not necessarily bad. You make the point that it is often imposed on most people or most entities, ventures. And the prescription you have you have spoken about is to step back and think about uh, think about scale. What is scale? Now, Nandan, you have given it much thought and believe that there are ways scale can be reimagined, so to speak. Can you take us a bit through that?
Yeah, so I think that obviously we need scale. I mean, look, when we're talking about solving large population challenges, we need scale. And much of the work I've done in the public space, whether it's Aadhaar or being advisor on UPI, or it's all about scale. It's all about billions of people, billions of transactions. But the thing is that you have to design it in a way where you are able to distribute the data. For example, the account aggregator, the power of the idea is that people are empowered with their own data and they can take the data. It's portable. When they change jobs, they can take it with them, etc. So you can have scale. I think the what we are referring to is scale which concentrates value only in one location and does not share the value. So our model of scale is societal scale, where value is distributed, value is shared, data is distributed, and that kind of scale is not not a problem.
So
Yeah.
that sorry, Tanuj, you were saying something. Go
No, I just wanted to summarize that is that the idea that network effects, if I hope the audience is familiar with that term, is that everybody knows that there are network effects in tech, and there has been a systematic movement to build around it and capture it. So network effects happen. If those value accrues at the network level, the question we ask is, shouldn't that network belong to all of us? Just like the internet, was originally a digital public good. Isn't that how most networks should be? Otherwise, whoever owns the network owns everything.
So this is where the idea of it as a public good comes in.
Hmm.
Uh, do
Yes.
I hear you
And
right on that one?
that's why the account aggregator framework of India is so strategic, because it actually provides a practical technological way of distributing data where people are in charge of their own data. They can take it with them, they can move with it, they can, and that's very, very powerful. And we'll see the value of that in the next 5, 10 years. For example, if I am a small supplier, I'm selling on one platform, and I have a great track record in supplying high quality goods on time and so on. If I'm able to take that digital sort of history of mine and move to another platform or whatever, then I'm actually able to take leverage my good performance on one platform. So having data which you can take with you is so important.
And this is not a new solution. I mean, just want to, for the audience, just in case, interoperability has been the solution whenever you had a concentrated industry and the players there trying to act against consumer interests. So telecom, mobile number portability. In the health insurance space, when you have these carryover benefits or whatever, now you have that benefit portability in the policies, right? It's just a simple idea that the things that are at the network level should belong to everybody.
Now, this is something that you are trying to reimagine, and you have the bandwidth to spend time on, Nandan. And you can actually, having spent a lifetime in business, you can actually go ahead and invest all of your energies in this. But what about, say, someone like Tanuj, for instance, who has at least 4 decades of a working life to go? How do you reckon he should be thinking about this?
No, I think we're not trying to say that everybody should be developing digital public goods as a profession or something. All we're saying is that look at something like the pandemic, right? In the pandemic, we had a set of solutions for individuals. So individuals could wear masks, practice social distancing, and so on. And we had a set of solutions for society, which was to vaccinate people and create some kind of immunity. Similarly, in climate, we have a set of solutions for individuals: eat less meat or fly less or whatever. And we have solutions for society, which could be a carbon tax. So, in any area where society is facing a challenge, we have solutions which we can propose for individuals and for societies. And what we noticed was that in the digital world, which is actually one of the big challenges of people because of the amount of time they spend on devices, doom scrolling, cyberbullying, this, that, and the other, fake news, polarization. There's no real template for what individuals can do to make their lives better and more effective, nor are there proposals on how technology can be restructured to be more equitable and competitive. So that's really what now idea is. We're not asking people to sit and work on this, but to understand that Just like we have a mental frame on pandemic, we have a mental frame on climate, we need to have a mental frame on digital.
Right.
Sure. Ram, are there any questions that are
Uh,
there?
yeah, I think Dr. Leena wanted to come in.
Yeah.
Once
Also,
Yeah.
Charles, I may have to leave in a couple of minutes. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. No, actually, it's been a very interesting discussion, and I think, I really can connect with it. I think one of the aspects, since I'm from the area of organizational behavior, we were talking about attention, and, you're talking about these 15-second videos. I was wondering if we are creating then a kind of a habit, a kind of a generation of people who don't have a very long attention span. I mean, you get into the habit of very quickly moving on, and therefore, the ability to assimilate, or the ability to reflect, maybe even gets hampered in the long run. I was just thinking of that as maybe one of the kind of unthought of consequences of continuous use of or engagement with uh, you know uh, technology, or with the internet, etc.
I think
So,
that's a great point, Dr. Lina. I think focus is really the scarcity now. Being able to focus
yeah,
and being able to stay the course and not have some kind of ADD kind of stuff, and also the ability to connect dots. You know what
yeah,
Rahul said, that if you have a wide worldview, then and you stumble on things serendipitously, then over time you're able to connect the dots. These are all very useful skills in a complex world, and
mhm,
these skills may not get developed if in this situation.
yeah, true.
I want to add that the changes are, much more sometimes tangible than that also. Is that I have now noticed friends who have restaurants or people who want to start restaurants, etc., and then restaurants have gone to now dedicatedly think about an Instagram corner, also weddings or whatever, like just places where people will click pictures for social media that in that frame are significantly prettier or more whatever than the rest of the environment is. And to me that just that site is there's a certain amount of absurdity obviously in this. I get
Mm,
why people do it,
yeah.
but but my to me per se it is like you're saying, it is concerning, right? Because the problem is not that people are doing it. The problem is, can people really opt out of doing it, right? Have we have
So,
has it become a
yeah.
situation where they're helpless?
So, Tanuj, that brings me to the next thing that I was thinking about, and that was FOMO. This whole thing of fear of missing out. And when I hear Nandan saying that one has to prioritize, and you said you have to choose calm, and productivity follows. One has to have that ability to say no, and the ability to understand that you cannot chase everything, or every new post that has come up on your account or whatever. That you have to learn to maybe take a call about how much you want to follow, or what you want to do, because I think otherwise you're just constantly chasing, and
Yeah,
have this fear of missing out on something. People keep going back to their phone again and again, as if
yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know what else to add except that if you really want to get over your fear of missing out, because it's like anything else, if I tell you there's nothing wrong, don't worry, you won't miss anything, you won't believe me.
yeah,
So the only advice I have to offer is actually miss out for a while and see if your life changes. One, for example, disagreement between me and Nandan is that I read no news. Okay, so it's not something I'm admitting this on a Twitter space and everything, but like I read zero news. I have realized that like Nandan has his quality sources and he says this and that. I end up reading only recommendations of specific pieces that people send to me, and I thankfully have the kind of relationships where people find something interesting they think of me, which because we cultivated that, and I used to do that in reverse earlier. So I read no news at all. I do not feel less informed. I don't feel like I don't know what's going on. I don't feel like because I'm not listening to every news or every item, or I don't have a view on every thing that's hot right now. I don't feel like I'm missing out in life in anything at all. And it's been going so well for me that I've been switched off since about 2018, 17 or 18. I really don't know what's happening.
There are a lot of unknown unknowns, Tanuj.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
There are
But
a
like,
lot of unknown unknowns indeed. And talking of unknown unknowns, I know Nandan, you said you have to leave, but
Yeah.
before you do, since you were speaking about public goods and creating a new internet, that is not toxic. While on that, there was a theme that you touched upon, which was around crypto, and I got a feeling that both of you left something unsaid there, because you spoke about that there are individual ideas in cryptocurrencies that make sense. What are those individual ideas is something that I wanted to ask the both of you, because it is most intriguing, because in popular imagination currently this is an asset class. Is that the correct way to think about it, or is that the incorrect way?
Yeah.
Where do you all stand on this?
So I think I think we have slightly different opinions in that sense. But yes, I think my view is that it cannot be a currency for the simple reason that it is impossible. I mean, you really need to be able to do transactions at very high volume, at very low cost, very low environmental issues, and be able and the price should be stable. And none of these things are true of crypto. So it's not clear to me that I'll use crypto to buy vegetables in a market. But it certainly could be an asset class, and that's how the Indian government is thinking about it and saying they'll have a flat rate for digital assets to tax and so on. And I'm also happy with the decision to have a central bank digital currency, CBDC, the digital rupee, because I think to me the challenge in the crypto world is stable coins, which often, in my view, are unstable coins. Essentially, because they give you the right to transfer at any time to convert from the stable coin into the fiat currency. And these guys don't necessarily have the reserves to back this up. So if there's a run on the currency, then that could cause major challenges for the whole crypto world. And finally, I think while there's the siren song of decentralization, there's as much centralization in the crypto world as anywhere else. A few set of guys own most of the bitcoins. A few set of miners control each chain. A few exchanges control the trading. So it's not as if this new world is some nirvana decentralized world. There is centralization happening too. So with that, I'll sign off, Charles. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much, Nandan. That was
Thanks to Dr.
absolutely
Leena, and thanks to
fascinating.
everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you,
Thanks
Nandan.
so
It was really
much.
lovely listening to
Okay.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Lovely listening to you, Nandan. Tanuj, you
yeah,
had a point of
yeah,
view on this one that
yeah,
was
yeah.
fascinating listening.
I'm glad Nandan left before I can say
No, it would have been
different.
lovely to listen
Yeah, yeah, no,
to
no. So
your take on this one.
no, between see, this is how those walk in the parks and whatever. Also, this is what we do, right? We challenge our ideas, and I think, all of us then in this network, we end up roughly, in similar positions with nuance now, everybody along. So I'll say this, right? Like, I think both Nandan and I agree that you throw a rock in crypto, you hit a scam, right? 95% of the projects there, most likely, are, I mean, either they are scams or they're indistinguishable from scams, right? Which is, if you're an investor or whatever, if you want to be um, careful, it's a bad idea, right? Having said that, it's the idea that, can you do something. So I don't know if you guys know about Clima DAO, right? I'll start there as an interesting story of what can be done in crypto. If is anybody else who's better equipped to explain about Clima DAO, I would be happy to have somebody else come in.
No,
Otherwise, if I may, yeah,
go on.
if I may take a chance, some people basically said, "Oh, climate change, big issue. Not enough people doing anything about it meaningfully, right? Like your classic angst about you, G20 is not doing anything, this one's not doing anything." They said, "Okay, let's start a DAO, which is, I hope most of you know now, a decentralized autonomous organization." Um, and started out, put money in. What did this group with money do? And by the way, all anonymous founders, 12, they said that, look, we're going to take on some big companies and big money and big whatever, so let's all stay secret and anonymous and decentralized. And what did they do? They basically cornered the market, right? Which is basically like what happened to GameStop in was that 2021 January? I think so. Yeah. So what happened to GameStop stock in 2021 January? They
Yeah.
did that to carbon credits. So they basically did a run on carbon credits and drove the price up, such that the equation now for like for a company to decide between whether I'm going to pollute or whether I'm going to buy carbon credits to offset, or I'm going to invest in technology towards reducing my overall carbon footprint. The economics of it just changed overnight because there's one DAO, right? And the token, the DAO token, because they're holding carbon credits and carbon credits are now that much more expensive, also made money, right? The people who invested in that DAO. And this has been done anonymously. We don't know who these people are. We don't know where in the globe they are. They're not using the formal financial system, so no KYC, whatever. They just managed to do it, right? This is an example of a thing that it just uses all the Web3 components to fundamentally to create something that just doesn't exist in the world right now. So that's one. NFTs also, I personally think, are a concept that basically all of us, blue ticks included, right, signal status, and we're always humans for millennia have been trying to signal status, right? It could have been the color, as something as simple as the color blue, because it was not as naturally occurring as the other colors. So just having like a blue cloth or whatever was a symbol of status. That has gone evolved to gold and golden temples and golden sort of a bunch of things, all the way down to Audi, BMW, having a vanity license plate, whatever, right? Like we're always looking for ways to signal status. Now that all of us are agreeing that our time is going to be spent more digitally and doing whatever, what are the symbols and markers of status and rarity and wealth and all of those things that we can, and how are we going to do that reliably? And the answer is, of course, NFT. Now you can argue whether the picture of a bored ape is really worth $1 million. Is it going to be as prominent as a scarce resource, or whatever? Is that going to be what people pay for even 20 years, 30 years, 100 years down the line? I don't know. I don't, and also I don't care, because I'm not buying pictures of apes for millions of dollars. But the idea is that as a thing in the world, its time has arrived. I genuinely believe this. Now, the question, of course, comes back to what we're asking in the book, in the last chapter that we call Architecting the Future, is that now that this possibility exists, that you can display some sort of markers of status or whatever that we've been doing anyway, right? And a lot of people get put off by that idea, but like it's going to happen anyway. So how do you want to engineer this such that it finally does good for all of us? So instead of like NFTs of like I have too much money, can we have NFTs for I volunteered 40 hours at here, and that's a unique token, non-transferable, that you can only get if you actually put in time towards that cause, right? What does a society look like where we have NFTs of this sort versus NFT of another? And of course, I'm not even getting into the utility kind of NFTs where, let's say, like for a piece of music or whatever, you're a patron, you essentially are buying stock, quote unquote, stock in, say, an artist's song individually, and as the song does well, you also get a share of the royalty, etc. So it's just an innovative or a different funding model. There are NFTs in games, which gives you powers and stuff like that. All of this, I think, will come around and will settle. It's just that, yeah, today, hit a rock. I mean, throw a rock, hit a scam for sure. Like, I don't think anyone disagrees.
Right. I mean, there was a fascinating conversation we had the other day on the whole theme. I wish Nandan was around and, would have taken this up as a challenge. It would have been as a great one. It would have been a great intellect to
I,
spar with Nandan on this one.
I don't think he's that rich either. I think people want to like put this into a binary of A versus B. I personally, for example, would never. I like I said right now, an NFT or say, this is an example, the technology I think whose time has come. But if you tell me, then should I invest in NFTs? I would say no, Charles, no, please don't. Right? You're most likely going to lose your shirt.
Sure, sure, sure. Right. Right. So, Professor Lina, if I may ask you, I know we've run way past time. If I may ask you, what for your takeaways, you've been listening in.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
how would
So
you? Uh,
thank you, Charles. I think for me, one of the things that really sort of stayed with me was this, uh, trying to create or to look at different modes of or devices through which you create, communicate, and curate. So, you have separate devices through which you do that, and so that helps you to kind of use your time effectively in different, and you ensure that you engage in all three, to create, to communicate, and to curate in different at different points of time. So this whole thing of trying to structure your interface with the world through these different devices. The other thing that I really liked was, when Tanuj talked about using the phone as a mirror rather than as a window, and I thought that stayed with me. The whole imagery of that statement, that don't use a phone as a kind of a device to run away from your problems or your issues, or to kind of avoid thinking about something. Use it for reflection. So the device is there, but use it appropriately rather than as a kind of an escape mechanism. So I think these are some things that I took away, definitely. And I think that the whole issue of being more mindful, uh, kind of having some self discipline, all of that kind of struck a very strong chord with me.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Leena. And Tanuj,
Thank,
thank you so
yeah,
much.
I wanted to say thank you. First of all, this is a very fun conversation. I keep forgetting that there are 300 people listening, and I'm talking to you as if it's a phone call regularly. I'm guessing that's why these things are fun and popular. Thank you so much, Dr. Leena. I mean, you sort of selecting those ideas, because we both, I think, Nandan and I, were a little um, worried, right? Where this is not our area. We're not productivity gurus, nor are we trying to be. So, like, those ideas specifically, we were, I guess, most worried about, because all the other big picture stuff, we actually have some experience doing
Yeah.
and building. So I think those we're kind of confident where we are, but this is the kind of stuff that used to worry us. So I'm so glad that those are the ideas that you liked.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.
Right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, then. Thank you, Tanuj. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Ramnath. It was good fun.
Yeah.
Bye.